Welcome to Some Dad Gaming. Your time is valuable, so let's get into it. Now, before you run into the comment section screaming Cronus, what if I told you it's free and all in the settings and techniques in every shooting game with customizable settings? And to prove it in this video, we'll use Delta Force and Arc Raiders settings. And to sum it up, gaming companies call the same settings something else, either for copyright reasons or to keep you off other games. And that's where they get you. But we're gonna fix that. For example, the Delta Force settings look like this, but in Arc Raiders, they look like this. And as you can see, the name of the settings are different, but they act the same. For example, turning activation in Delta Force is the same as ramp up time in Arc Raiders. They have different names, but do the same thing. And don't worry, I'm not here to explain input curves, latency, stick drift with charts and diagrams. No, I'm here to show you, like catching a baseball or changing a tire. I'm here to make sure you don't hurt yourself, because I believe in you. Just look at pro basketball players like Steph Curry, who has perfected his methods to be one of the best in the NBA. Chill out, LeBron James fans, I said one of the best. Either way, does he look up a video on how to shoot a three-pointer against 7-foot giants every year or every month? No, he was taught a technique a long time ago by his dad, and since then he's perfected those methods himself today. I am that dad coach, I am your Del Curry, and the first thing we need to do, reset those damn settings, seriously. Field of view, sensitivity, and dead zones. Because that dad who killed you, his aim looks like this. Now open up those settings and pick your input curve. If you like to jump from game to game or like snappy flicks, choose linear. But if you want more control, use standard in Delta Force or exponential in Arc Raiders. There's also a third curve for you YY TikTokers that is really aggressive. It speeds up and then slows down and has many different names like dynamic and sunasada, or however that's pronounced. Then raise your field of view to the max. Then lower all your boost, acceleration delays, activation times, and ramp up times to 0. And then I'm gonna come in there and I'm gonna put my foot in your ass if you say "and then" again! Lower both your center dead zones to 0. Now, let's find our baseline. Go to the practice range, and if you have a standard controller, raise your dead zones up by 5 until you stop drifting. Then put your crosshair over the target, and slightly wiggle your crosshair back and forth across the target. If you're wiggling outside the hitbox, lower your horizontal sense. If it seems too slow, raise it, and use however much wiggle force that feels right for you. Then on the vertical sense, use around 50 to 75% of your horizontal sense. You can't make a dollar without making sense. For example, in Delta Force, my horizontal is 120 and my vertical is 90. But in Arc Raiders, my horizontal is 50 and my vertical is 40. You get the picture. Different games, different settings, but the same feeling. And yes, before you finish that, those are too slow. You'll get shot in the back and die before you can turn around fast enough. Comment. We're not done. Now point at the target and move your stick 100% left or right, doing a 360. And try to put your crosshair back on the target. Measure this by counting, like this: 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. And if you're under aiming, raise your horizontal boost. But if you're over aiming, lower your horizontal boost. In Delta Force, my horizontal outer dead zone acceleration, aka boost, is 240. In Arc Raiders, my horizontal look boost is 75. And no, it doesn't have to be exactly 3 seconds. Just make sure you're putting the crosshair back on or near the target. Now, to make sure we make this as smooth and as snappy as you like, adjust your ramp up time, aka activation time in Delta Force. Basically, the lower it is, the snappier the flicks, and the higher it is, the smoother the turning. For example, if you're still over aiming, slightly raise it, but if it feels too slow, slightly lower it. In Delta Force, my activation time, aka ramp up, is 0.25, but in Arc Raiders, my horizontal ramp up time is 0.5. And the reason why is because the max on Delta Force is 1.0, and the max in Arc Raiders is 2.0, both equaling 1 full second. So 0.5 is 0.25. No need to do the math, don't worry, I did it for you. Now that we found our hipfire sense, let's find our ADS sensitivity, aka aim down sight. Now try finding 2 targets, 2 objects, or a straight line and stand directly in the middle. Then point at one of the targets. And following the same steps, start to wiggle your sight back and forth across the target. But this time you want to stay around the center of the target. In Delta Force, my horizontal ADS is 40. My vertical ADS is 30. In Arc Raiders, it's called Zoom Sense Multiplier, aka ADS, and mine is 50%. Now, ADS on the target, but instead of doing a 360, do a 90 or a 180 degree turn left or right. And yes, measure this by counting, the same way we did before. In Delta Force, if it feels too slow or you're under aiming, raise your ADS horizontal outer dead zone acceleration, aka ADS boost. Mine's 120. But in Arc Raiders, if it feels too slow or you're under aiming, raise your horizontal ADS boost. Mine's 20. Both at 180 degrees. Then put your ADS horizontal ramp up times, aka activation times, to the same as your horizontal hipfire ramp up times, and leave all delays to 0 for snappy aiming. Side note, if there are any vertical boost or vertical ramp ups not mentioned in the game you're playing, just follow the 50 to 75% rule again, or leave them at 0. Just remember, whatever feels comfortable for you is ideal. Bonus tip, if you're aiming good, but you go to shoot and your recoil control is still all over the place, point at a blank wall. Start shooting and with your right stick slightly pull down and try to control your recoil. If your recoil control feels touchy and you instantly pull down, bump up your dead zones. Or if your recoil control kicks up, lower your dead zones. And keep doing this until it feels like a laser. And once you have that 0 recoil feel like this, find a target and put your crosshair on the far side of the target. Then start shooting and start aiming towards the target while trying to control your recoil. And if your aim pulls down, raise up your dead zone. Or if it kicks up over the target, lower your dead zone. And keep doing this until you have a nice straight line. This also makes for great practice when tracking a target, especially through smoke where there's no aim assist, or flicking from target to target. Now look at that, you're freaking amazing. My final dad tip, remember there are many other variables, such as weapons, attachments, movement, latency, and probably the most important, game awareness and map knowledge. But don't worry, I believe in you. Oh, and before I forget, if you're a Call of Duty and a Battlefield diehard, this method works for you right now. But if you need a more detailed and dedicated game-specific settings video, don't worry, it's in the works. Like I said, different games, different settings, same method. So don't forget to subscribe and don't miss out. Now get out there and get called a cheater.